people forget there's a lot of noise out there. Yeah. And
Yeah.
they think they are only competing against their competitors, but they're competing against another bill that's just come in, your kid's crying. And so what they do is they have a pretty underwhelming ad. And if that happens to get the click, then they're sending them to landing pages or sales pages or websites that are not built for conversion.
Mm-hmm.
And all they do is they have some weak boiled chicken, sad call to action, like chat
Yeah.
with us. And it's like, do you seriously think that that would get somebody to take action?
First of all, I think you should be kinder to boiled chicken. That's a little bit discriminatory. I quite like boiled chicken with the right additions.
This is the art of demand.
Welcome to this week's episode of The Art of Demand. Today, we're having a discussion on a topic that's quite near and dear to me, conversions and funnels. Having been someone who's worked in sales and marketing for north of, we'll call it 10, 12 years officially, and perhaps 15 years if you count my years selling shit in high school, I have spent a lot of time dwelling on how and why business owners, leaders, marketing teams, sales teams consider conversions and funnels the way that they do. And there's some really common mistakes that I at least personally have been experiencing for some time. And I found that the sentiment is shared with many others in our profession as well. So today I wanted to open up a discussion around these key mistakes with none other than Alisha Conlin-Hurd, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. But Alisha has a background. Alisha, I read actually, I think in one of your LinkedIn posts, Alisha has a background looking under the hood of over 450 businesses to try and understand how they can sell what they do. And that list of businesses included, I believe, some SaaS companies and large corporates, conglomerates, but also a Brazilian butt lift company. Is that correct?
That is correct. And on that list, there is porn addiction counselors, male strippers. I've seen it all. I think I can officially say I've nearly worked in every niche or industry that exists.
Right. So I didn't know about those extra ones, but needless to say that you've got quite a diverse set of experiences there. So I'm looking forward to our conversation today. So welcome on board.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk about funnels. Anyone that'll let me rant about funnels is a friend of mine. So let's get into it.
Let's do it. So on today's agenda, we're going to be looking at 6 of the most common mistakes that marketing, sales, or leadership teams, founders, make when it comes to conversion optimization. And I want to kick the conversation off with some words of yours, actually, Alisha. So I'll quote you word for word. Thinking that a funnel is optional. Do you want to explain what you meant when you said that?
Yeah. So there's a funny thing, right, in digital marketing, or at least we have this in our company, where traffic eats first. Yeah, because everyone's obsessed with traffic. And this is why a lot of people become media buyers or traffic specialists, because it's easy to sell, because people know they want it and they think it's the key to unlocking scale and making more money. And so what I started to find was, when I was doing the sales calls for the company, was that people were thinking that a funnel was optional. Oh, I'm going to buy a funnel and then I'll have a funnel. And it just became like, bro, no, you have a funnel, whether you realize it or not, because a funnel is just the touch points that somebody has with your company. And I think that people think a funnel is optional because funnels are super synonymous with Russell Brunson, yeah, like the OG Papa Daddy of funnels and click funnels.
Yeah.
And so people think internet marketers scare me. Oh, I don't have a funnel. That's not me.
Yeah. Look, it's the industry's to blame for some of this, right? Because the internet bro dudes really did screw up the perception of what a funnel is. Now, I believe every company, especially at our company, we believe everyone needs what we call a growth engine. And to us, a growth engine is a collection of funnels in essence. And a funnel to me really is like a pathway to a customer. But the problem that you have when you open up conversations about funnels is that the perception is that they're a linear journey, that it's like step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I go through these 5 stages that Mr. Brunson or whoever else, whichever other joker that's read Schwartz's books, Collier's books, is out there spruiking and saying, like, hey, if you just do these 5 things, you will generate so many sales and you will have so many inquiries that your sales teams will never sleep. But it's not true, right? There's so many touch points inside your marketing ecosystem, your sales ecosystem, because it's not just marketing either. In fact, even your operations teams have to be contributing to your funnel, because your customer service is very much a contributor to your marketing funnel, right? And where the problem lies is that, well, one school of thought is that, as I said, the funnels are this linear journey. We'll plug the most perfect thing in. We can pay $20,000 for this amazing funnel that guy sells, and that's how we win. And then the other school of thought is, like, especially if we're talking B2B marketing teams, right, or B2B founders, it's like, well, no, our journeys are really sophisticated and complex. Therefore, like, traditional marketing doesn't work for us. But any pathway for a customer to reach you is essentially a funnel. And if we don't appreciate the role that those pathways play, the role that a funnel plays in the longevity of a business, in the profitability of a business, in the scaling of a company, then we're really, like, it's a huge detriment to any sort of organizational objective. If I may ask you, Alisha, we align in our thinking on this, right? And you're pretty vocal about the fact that the funnel is not optional. But in your experience, why are people perceiving it this way? Why are people sort of going like, oh, we don't need to worry about, these marketing systems, pathways, or funnels? Like, how do they end up in that position?
Well, I guess basically is because a lot of people think they're in the wrong business. They think they're a dentist, or they think they're a lawyer, or they think they're in home building. And every single business owner should be a marketer and a salesperson. That's the business that you're in, right? You're not a dentist, you're not a lawyer. You're in the business of marketing your services and making people understand how you help them to get to a dream outcome. So if you don't understand that, that's why most businesses die of obscurity and fade into nothing and can't get more customers and leads. So I think that's really one of the biggest reasons. That's my biggest beef. There's more beefs, but that's the biggest one.
I was having a conversation with Lana Hill last week around PR strategy, and we were speaking about the idea of investing in activities which will one day act like accelerators in your company. And sometimes to build an accelerator, you first have to go through a period of pain or risk or investment before you go, all right, you know what, I figured this thing out that now drives a lot of value. And to close out this sort of a part of the conversation or the agenda, I feel one of the issues is also that working at your funnel or your ecosystem or your growth engine, whatever the hell you want to call it, is an activity you have to invest in, that it's not a linear journey. It's not step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boohoo, we're done. It's a process, and it's a mindset, and it's a culture you have to adopt. You have to become really committed to that growth and experimentation process, and that's really how you figure it out. And that's perhaps where a lot of people fall down as well, right? I'm going to step forward to the second item on our agenda. So running traffic to irrelevant or unoptimized experiences. And by experiences, so this is something I feel really strongly about, whether that's landing pages, emails, people walking in your doors, your phones, anywhere they can connect with you. The biggest successes that we've seen, or I've seen working in this space over the years, has really, it sounds so simple, right? It's like such a almost like a cliche piece of advice in our line of work, like be relevant to people, say the right thing, right? But the biggest successes that we've had working on various campaigns and strategies is really just by going, hey, what's going to be relevant on the other side of this thing that we're doing, and why is that relevant? And then just like sort of threat testing that, experimenting with that, and going, like, continuing to ask the same question again and again until we arrive at a winner. What's your thoughts about this?
So in terms of, running traffic to irrelevant, unoptimized experiences, number one is that people forget there's a lot of noise out there. And they think they are only competing against their competitors, but they're competing against another bill that's just come in, your kids crying, the new reality TV. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get somebody motivated to do what they want to do, right? They're trying to get somebody to stop what they're doing in their life, come out of inertia and take the action that they want them to take. And so what they do is they have a pretty underwhelming ad. And if that happens to get the click, because that's where it all starts in your funnel, right? You get the click, then they're sending them to landing pages or sales pages or websites that are not built for conversions. They're usually made with wishy-washy branding about us copy that wouldn't excite anybody. It's me marketing that is super self-serving, optimized for the ego that nobody gives a crap about. And they don't think of their landing pages as their digital salesperson. So this thing is meant to be persuading somebody to take an action. And all they do is they have some weak boiled chicken, sad call to action, like chat with us or speak with a specialist or get a quote. And it's like, do you seriously think that that would get somebody to take action and stop what they're doing? Like, I don't think so.
First of all, I think you should be kinder to boiled chicken. That's a little bit discriminatory. I quite like boiled chicken with the right additions, but I sort of look at it as there's really three variables that will determine the success of any marketing effort: audience, message, and offer. The perfect synergy of those three things, I see that as like the holy trinity, right? You bring in the right person, offer them the right thing, show them the right message, and they'll convert. And if you hit those three markers, there's no reason that you shouldn't have people converting. And then absolutely, like, there's the element of, how interesting is what you're offering? How compelling is what you're offering? Are you saying it in a really interesting and compelling way? There's an example, I think one of the best examples of a well-converting marketing campaign or system is the Dollar Shave Club. I don't know if you saw their campaigns. They were all over the marketing publications back in the day, but they did exceptionally well. But not only did they take something that was really relevant, really easy to access, brought in the traffic from the right places, but they created it. They created campaigns that were really entertaining and engaging, and really elevated the experience for people, right? But if I was to dive a little bit deeper for a second, one of the biggest things that we evaluate, that I sort of look at especially when we look at larger ad accounts, right? If you're spending sort of $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 plus per month on any channel, it's really irrelevant whether it's Google, Facebook, newspapers, for all I care. One of the biggest mistakes people are making within this mistake is not creating experiences for the different subsets of traffic. So especially, if you run Google Ads, for example, you've got you might have like 8 different groups of really broad matching traffic modifiers, and you've got, like Google's a vacuum. If you don't put tight rules in the system, it will suck the internet dry of all kinds of traffic trying to get you the performance that you supposedly asked for. And when you're doing this, often you're bringing in a lot of traffic that is relevant, but the experience isn't relevant to them. Maybe your, ABC get a quote page perhaps could have worked for a portion of that traffic. Like, I'd even dispute that, because that's not the most effective way to get a conversion. But the ABC get a quote variation isn't as relevant to like the 8 different types of people coming in. It's like you're trying to sell the same shit to the 80-year-old grandmother and selling the exact same offer and message to the 21-year-old fresh out of uni. It's ridiculous. And even speaking about it, it's like, well, it's such common sense, and you wish more people would pay attention to this. When we pick up ad accounts, we quite often, if they're not so well optimized and there hasn't been enough attention to the post-click experiences, like, you can knock off half that like cost of converting a customer just by getting the right thing in front of the right person.
Yeah.
I'm going to segue into another one of the sort of critical points that at least I've observed, and I think we had some commentary around this when we've spoken before, but the mistake of looking for the magic button, right? That's what I call it. It's the secret sauce, the trick. You made a comment when we spoke last about people pursuing technology over psychology and looking for the perfect tool or platform. I've often talked about people chasing the answers around what the perfect color of the button is, what the perfect word is to use on a page. And you get some examples of these like conversion wins where, some of these combinations of things will do well for you, but very rarely is it the game changer. What's your thoughts around this?
So this is one of the things that frustrates me the most with clients for sure, where it's like, oh, what do you think? I want to test this out. I want to test this out. And it's a stupid thing to test. And I know a lot of marketing managers have the same frustration internally in their companies, right? Where if they even do split testing, everybody has an opinion on what should be split tested. And so with a lot of my clients or just people that talk to me in general, I just say, I'm not going to talk to you about split testing
Mm-hmm.
until you have your foundations down pat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, we have four. It's target market, message, offer, and positioning.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't know what that is. And the reason why their marketing is hard, because why do you do split testing? It's to grow. But
Mm-hmm.
CRO stands for conversion rate optimization. You're
Mm-hmm.
optimizing something that typically is already working. So you're optimizing something where you understand the target market, you understand that you might test messaging, but you understand the core messaging. You know your positioning and you know an offer, and you might split test the offer, but you have the core thing working.
Yeah.
And so CRO is to take you to the next level. And anyway, I've got lots of thoughts about
Yeah.
this, but I don't think we have 3 hours. So
Yeah.
overall, what I think is people try and build a house on sand.
Yep.
They don't have their foundation down. They're putting friggin' sticky tape here, some glue tack there, and trying to hold it together. They're trying to find this hack, this secret sauce, but they don't want to go and do the unsexy thing and figure
Yeah.
out who their target market is. Like if you're a CEO or a business owner and you can't name 50 of your customers, what the hell are you in business for?
Yeah.
You are in business to serve people and solve their problems. And most people can't even tell you, in the words of the target market, anything about them. They don't even have an avatar, and it blows my mind. This is
Yeah.
big brands, and it's pretty much 449 of the companies I've ever worked with.
Yeah. Well, look, there's perhaps two different problems here as well, in that I've worked with a lot of marketing teams, founders, leaders that would claim they know these things. Or we do know our target market.
Yes.
We do know the message. I mean, when we go through initial exercises, one of the things I'm really conscious of is weeding out the bias, right? It's like, you're telling me your customer feels this and goes through this, but reality is I don't give a shit about what you think about your customer.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm here to listen to you, but we need to really put ourselves in the shoes of the customer. So how do you, to play devil's advocate, I mean, sometimes I feel that through CRO activities, conversion optimization activities, you can actually start uncovering some of the messages, uncovering some of the psychology, seeing what works. How would you advise someone or tackle this problem wherein, like, you don't know if that target market message psychology is well defined, well ironed out? Like, you think you know it because you sat around a boardroom and you did an exercise and you wrote out, HubSpot said you should write out buyer personas and whatever else. So you think you've got it all figured out, but no one actually knows. Are we hitting the right people, saying the right thing?
There is a way to be pretty sure though, right? And let me get this straight. A split test is worth 1,000 opinions, but there's some things where you can front load your work to be more sure about the foundations you're building. And it isn't a thing of, no, you shouldn't do split testing. It's that you need to have the right foundation to split test on top of. And as you were saying, like, it's sitting around the boardroom saying, I think, how bad is this? No pun intended. Those are two of the most dangerous words in marketing. I think. No one
Yeah.
gives a crap
Yeah,
what you think. And so when we come in and we work with clients, what we do before we drink too much of their Kool-Aid, because there's like a sweet spot, right? When you're like most objective on a new client account before you're too woke on what they do. We survey their target market, like their customers. We literally will survey their customers. We'll get hundreds of responses back. We'll distill the data and we'll say, hey, this is how your customers explain you to a friend. This is what they like about you. And we ask really, really good questions to actually understand the target market. And then we have this system, we call it the PX system that we use to take that and to start to tell a story and to start to create positioning. And it just creates that foundation so you have something to test upon, because so many people don't have that foundation. Marketing becomes super hard. Like, how the hell are you meant to know what messaging to test if you don't know who your target market is and what they say? And once you have these feedback loops set up with your customer support, with your sales team, with your customers, etc., then you actually have unlimited ad angle ideas. You have unlimited headlines. You have unlimited offers because you've got the right input. Marketing is inputs and outputs, garbage in, garbage out. If you're sitting around a boardroom just, giving each other a big old grin because you all think you know your shit, but you haven't actually spoken to your target market.
Yeah.
That's why you can't ever split test.
Yeah. Look, I totally agree with you. It's absolutely beyond me why so many of the people we talk to, and this is large teams and small, no one's safe from this sort of mindset, believe that it's not worth surveying their customers. It's not worth actually reaching out to people and getting their actual experiences and insights. And even when they do, the other challenge I find is that once again, you're either getting like crappy insights or you're getting like really biased insights, right? Now, this is a whole, I think we could almost do a whole episode on this where I could really dive into all the ways to research people. But I mean, simple exercises like reading reviews, looking at your competitors' reviews, seeing what kinds of questions are asked online. When you're interviewing your customers, asking really specific questions about the experiences that they had with you, not, how would you rate your experience with me? Because that's the other problem. Like I'll, walk into an organization, they go, yeah, we've been doing surveys for like 4 years. Okay, let's look at it. Oh, okay, you've been getting like ratings of 1 to 10 for like 300 different cuts. Doesn't tell me anything.
They're just ticking a box, right? And it's ask good questions, get good answers. They're like, oh, and then they don't do anything with the data either. So it's like, think about what is the end outcome. What do you actually want to find out? How do you want to use that qualitative data? I actually think, maybe this is for a different episode, but people don't know how to use qualitative data. They don't know how to make a story with it. Quantitative, which is your numbers, tells you the what. But you need to layer in the qualitative to tell you the why. And that's another thing on this split testing, right? It's no good to be like, oh, conversions are down 20% and only 3% of people click this. So what? What are you meant to do with that information? Then you need to understand how to read qualitative data, which is the why and the people, to even make sense of that quantitative data as well.
Yep, 100%. And we're going to come to a little discussion about data in a moment, because I feel very personally about that, being a very logically minded individual and very quantitatively driven individual. I'll open up that dialogue in a moment, so we'll circle back. But I want to move on to, I want to segue into one of the other things I've heard you say before: first order versus fourth order thinking. So one of the big mistakes, and I agree with this absolutely and wholly, is leaders, particularly leaders, right? Because they are the ones that should set the vision and the culture of growth, using first order thinking versus fourth order thinking, kind of looking for the quick wins. And especially in the internet marketing age, going, like leads is everything, right? It's like that 5-step funnel that'll bring in leads overnight and we'll be millionaires and we can buy yachts and Ferraris and sit on the side of the road doing nothing. That's really what's driven this type of thinking way beyond where it was. But I want to hear your thoughts around this. So you obviously feel very strongly about this. Can you talk to me about where this has come from?
I feel like you have all of my trigger topics and I'm like getting explosive on every single one, but I guess we did plan this podcast episode somewhat. So it's like all of my trauma and all of my beefs. But with it, when it comes to this first order versus fourth order thinking, so when I'm working with clients, and there's been many, many hundreds of them, they're like, I just want leads right now. And all they want to do is go after leads that are in market ready to buy. And the thing is, nobody wakes up one day and thinks, and like, I want this, I'm going to buy this. People go through a journey, the buyer's journey. I think you might have shit on it before, the Eugene Schwartz's 5 different levels of awareness.
I don't have a problem with it. I just have a problem with what people do with it.
Yeah. So here's how to like actually use it then. Yeah. So people go through that journey, whether you hold their hand through them or not. And what most clients do is imagine they're a retail shop. They stand at that cash register and they will not move. They're just like, I'm just going to wait here and wait until people are ready to buy. And there's people touching jeans, trying on beanies, and they have a couple of questions that if you just answered them, you would move them those 2 steps closer to the cash register. So people, if anyone doesn't know the Eugene Schwartz's 5 levels of awareness, unaware, like doesn't even know they have a problem, to most aware. They know what you do when they're ready to buy, probably from your competitor. Everyone's going down there. But people have these different conversations in their head going on that move them down the buyer's journey. So when we talk about first order versus fourth order of thinking. First order, and this can be used in anything, but in this particular example is they're scared to make mistakes. They need leads now. They usually have ambitious growth goals pulled out of their butts that are like not based on anything, right? Like how many times I worked with a client that had a 1,400 growth goal that the board and the stakeholders had signed off on. And I was like, you can't hit that. Like, it's just numbers. Here's how much traffic you need to even consider hitting that. Your budget doesn't reach that. Anyway, side note. So fourth order thinking is thinking, okay, well, I plan to be in business longer than 6 months. Yeah. And sometimes that buyer's journey is going to take longer than 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, a year. I work with big high ticket people have big high ticket clients, and the buyer's journey is 1, 2, 5 years. And so if you're not making content and bringing people into your universe and becoming an authority back there, then all you're ever going to do is be capped at the 3% of people in market looking for what you do.
Yeah. Look, when it comes to conversion rate optimization, people that are going, okay, how can we improve conversions? One, I mean, that's perhaps one brief, right? Marketing team gets told, lift the conversions, drop the CPA.
Yep.
We need more leads. That's the most common brief. Or you've got the leader sort of going, all right, yeah, we want to generate more leads. We've heard you need better conversions from the campaigns. Like, how are they doing? We sunk $100,000 into this. How do we do better? My pain with this is that when you run a business, right, and we're talking anyone who's doing $1 million in revenue, $1 billion in revenue, irrelevant, irrespective of the size that you're at, you commit to an ongoing game. You commit to a game of investing in certain activities and then evaluating whether that activity went well or not. You hire people, you fire people, you buy things, you offload things. It's just, that's part of the whole game. What I find is, especially when it comes to marketing campaigns and when you go conversion optimization activities, right? Like, let's try some stuff. A lot of leadership teams are out there going, well, we ran this thing, it didn't work. Actually, this stuff just doesn't work, right? And in that type of thinking, like, what you could have overlooked is, for example, you've got, okay, inquiries came in, we lifted performance in a campaign, but perhaps the new types of inquiries based on the offer that we're putting in front of people are not inquiries that the sales team understands how to deal with. So you're making this like quick thinking decision going, well, it doesn't work because the revenue is not coming in or the qualified opportunities are not going up. But in fact, you haven't actually looked beyond that first order. You're not looking at what other impacts, what other things in the business are impacting this result. If I started a journey, I changed my sort of fitness and training style probably about a year ago. And I went towards a much more functional combat training style approach. And I began thinking about mobility and strength and movement. And one of the things I really wanted to be able to do is smash out as many pull-ups as possible, right? And I was actually at the physio just this morning. And I've been getting a pain in my forearm for like the last 4 months. Don't ask me why it took 4 months to go to the physio, but the pain's been lingering and it's causing a lot of problems now. In these sort of 12 months, I've made a lot of progress. I feel much better, I'm much stronger. I've got more mobility. I'm doing the things that I wanted to do, but now I'm sort of at this, like, I've hit this speed bump. I went to see him and he goes, oh, look, it's just an overuse of tendon. Yeah, you're going too far, but this is a little problem. Let's adjust this. Let's fix it. Give it a week, reduce the load, and you'll be back on your feet and you'll probably come back a lot stronger, right? He stuck some needles in my arm and kind of released the tension, and that was it. And hopefully that will be the case. You know, in the past when I've had issues, he's solved them that way. And after the problem's solved, you excel forward. But just because you hit that problem doesn't mean you stop the activity, right? When you work with, when you see sort of marketing and leadership teams that run activities, then hit these like brick walls or think they're hitting these brick walls, and they've got a result, perhaps a marketing result, but not a business result. Many people, I feel, are just not committed to sifting through the remaining problems, and that's where the breakdown happens, right?
Yeah. Like, if a plane crashes, do we say that planes don't work? No. We have an investigation into why that thing went down. Yeah. And so the amount of people or clients that I talk to, oh, we tried email marketing or we tried Facebook ads. I'm like, I bet you executed it poorly. Yeah. Show me it. Because I bet you executed it really poorly and I can see exactly why it went wrong. or they didn't give it long enough, or they didn't set testing parameters. They didn't actually set a comprehensive what is success or what isn't. And I think that a lot of teams are scared to test stuff because of their managers, because of CEOs expecting instant gratification and immediate results from every single thing they do. And I was on a podcast the other day, and the host asked me, "Oh, what should a marketing budget be?" And I was like, if you have a machine that you put $1 in and get 2 out, you don't put a cap on that bad boy unless you can't facilitate the fulfillment, right? Like, why in the world, if you have a marketing machine that works, would you put a budget on it? Like, it doesn't quite make sense. What I think, and I'd be interested to get your opinion, what I think you should do as like a very general rule of thumb, it's like having like an all-star team, right? You have 1 or 2 star players. You put 80% of your resources and your time into scaling them and making them fortified and making them awesome. But what happens if one of them break their ankles and the other one retires, and you don't have any other channels? You have nothing else going for you. So you get the other 20% of your budget, your resources and time should be going into testing new channels, new things. And you need to be okay with failing, inverted commas, for anyone just listening, because failing is just feedback. It course corrects you. And we're so scared of failing and having marketing that doesn't work, that's why no one's innovating and testing. We're just being boring and copying what other people are doing. And worst of all, SMEs are trying to copy what big brands do, but big brands can bleed money. They don't care. Like, they can throw money at things. And so that there's a lot there to unpack. Talking stick, back to you.
Thank you. I agree with you completely. But what I believe the problem is a lack of understanding and education. The leaders we're referring to, we're saying, hey, you should diversify. If you've got a machine that you put $1 into, it puts $2 out. Why would you ever stop? You need a team of star players. You need to be able to sub people in and out. But the problem is they don't know which star player is out in the market. They don't even know what a star player looks like. In some cases, right? The leadership often doesn't understand the power of these marketing channels that we're referring to, or how you would make them work, or the amount that they need to risk. What is the timeline of risk? What is the expected reward? Unless they've got people and advocates that are really driving it and educating the process, which will bring me to my second point in a moment. But unless they've got that framework, that ecosystem where they can understand firsthand what it can do, how it would look, how they would implement it, what the risk is, and then make sound logistical decisions with those bits of information in hand, it's very tough to make that call, right? And now, sorry, you were going to say?
I was going to say, like, on that point though, if you're a business owner or a CEO, whose fault is that if you don't understand marketing and basically basic business growth? Like, either you need to skill up and learn it. Like, that's not an excuse in my opinion. Oh, I don't know. Well, how do you, like, if you run a business and you don't know that marketing brings you in more leads and sales, then you don't deserve to run a business. So either you learn it, or you hire somebody and you trust them to get the job done, right? But that's the breakdown. They're not learning it. They're not like, they think, oh, I'm a dentist, I'm a whatever, and that's what I do. So they're not learning it. They're being ignorant. That's your own fault. Or they hire somebody and then they don't trust them to do their job, or they put constraints on that, or they hire somebody and they just can't do, or they don't hire somebody. That's like the options, right? So that's what I would say to that is, that's your fault if you don't understand marketing. Like, there's enough resources out there.
I agree. Look, 100%. There's no reason for anyone to be at the helm of a business, a leader, an exec, and not understand marketing principles. We actually started at Invicta. We started crafting an offering recently, wherein we're offering people a program, companies a program, where the leaders can come in, get coached and trained, and they can have their marketing teams come get coached and trained, and go through a transformational process over the period of 6 to 12 months before we actually go, hey, you're ready for one of our programs. Because we can do all we do. We can create all the magic in the world and fill your inboxes and whatever. Sometimes we do, but sometimes we raise your brand and profile and get other wins, right? It doesn't really matter what we achieve for you. If you don't understand how to deal with all of these things, if you don't understand that you're going to need to move your energy and effort across different channels, diversify, get your sales teams ready, it's pointless. It's pointless. And, but we, like, obviously I'd love to sing our praises, but there's times that we have to say bye to clients. We stop working with them, and that's not what we want. And often cases, it's not that they're bad businesses or we didn't do right. Everyone was sort of doing the right thing as far as they could tell, but there was just a disconnect between, what the expectation was and what the reality was. That's it. So no, I'm 100% on board with this. And I really, to anyone listening, there's two things that I feel really need to be established, in that leaders, business owners they absolutely have to get themselves educated in this space. Even if they're going to have marketing teams and agencies and whoever else running shit for them, you need to know what you're getting into so you can make sound calls. And secondly, if you are running a marketing team or in a marketing team, it's your responsibility to understand everything. And if the leaders don't get it, well, it's your job to figure out how to create a culture that revolves around them understanding it. And, ways to do that, if I'm just to sort of spitball ideas, would be like you can create, initiatives where you communicate marketing efforts, you communicate the effects of certain things that you're running. You get sales teams involved. Like sales teams love to complain about the quality of leads and the amount of leads that they're getting, right? Well, get them involved. Get them involved in a conversation, and maybe once a week go, hey, I want to hear about your 3 best leads because I want to figure out how to get you more of those, right? There's just some really easy things you can do. And you can be a marketing administrator and sit around and just kind of post stuff on social media, or you can be someone who wants to be a leader and really drive change. And agreed. More education is needed. That people need to either self-educate or their teams need to drive the culture. So, we can agree on this bit. That unfortunately, there's no conflict. I was hoping we could find some more conflict in our discussion as well, but I'll keep looking for it. So, okay, look, moving into the next mistake. And I know for a fact we both believe really strongly about this because we do come from business development backgrounds and we've moved into the marketing space.
Yes.
Believing the sales process starts after the conversion, right? The vast majority, in fact, I think, at least in my experience, just keen to hear what you think, the vast majority of people that I've worked with believe that the sales process starts once the sales team gets the inquiry, once it hits their inbox, and that everything before that is just kind of like a thing you do to get some contact details.
Well, because you've already sworn on this podcast, that means that I'm allowed to, and I think that's bullshit. So when you're marketing, if you're generating leads, your goal is to plate up the highest quality leads to your sales team. Your goal is not to tick a box and hit some KPI. You should and this is another big problem, right? Most sales and marketing teams, there's a huge disconnect and they're not playing on the same team and they whinge about each other. And that's the other thing. Your marketing, the point of that is to make selling superfluous, to make selling unnecessary. You should be generating such high quality inbound leads that they're excited to talk with the sales team. They're pre-framed, they're educated, and they don't have to close on the sales calls. They don't have to do these hardcore sales. People are coming in and it's more of a relationship building. And all the salesperson has to do is make sure it's a good fit for the company. That should be your goal as a marketer. And maybe I'm a bit of a salesperson empathist, from being in sales. But I think that's what makes me a much stronger marketer because I understand the whole journey. And so a lot of marketers have this aversion to sales, right? Ugh, gross. I don't want to be salesy. Think of it as persuasion then. Call it persuasion because you are selling the positioning of the company. You're selling the offer. You're selling something at all points. You're selling the credibility, the authority. And if you're not doing that adequately in the marketing, you're not helping the team win. You're giving the sales team shitty leads.
Yeah. But, Alisha, isn't that a little bit easier said than done sometimes? Well, what do you do in a situation where the marketing team is playing devil's advocate? They are getting you a bunch of leads, and sure, maybe they're not the best quality. And you got a team of, sales team of 10 people that you got to feed. And you've got this conflict going on now because they're going, oh, the leads are shit. What's your opinion? And I have an opinion as well, but what's your opinion on what should be done in that kind of scenario?
Yeah. So everyone needs to be talking the same language, number one, right? So you need the marketing team and the sales team to sign off on what makes a good high quality lead. Say the scoring of the leads, right? You need to be on the same page as that. And so that's the first step that I do when I come in to companies. I'll go, hey, marketing, what makes a good lead? Hey, sales, what makes a good lead? It is not the same answer. It needs to be the same answer. And then when it comes to lead generation, there's 2 levers you can pull, quality or quantity. What does the sales team want? Do they? And it's not that it's mutually exclusive, but you're going to have more of one than the other, right?
Yeah.
And then second to that, and I know this doesn't just come automatically, but how can you create sales enablement pieces? Like, why? Just ask why. So many people are quick to assume. Ask them, why is it a shit lead? Oh, because they wanted this. Okay, cool. Interesting. They keep asking that question. I'll put that on the sales page. We'll also mention that in the email prior to them getting on a call with you. And here's a sales enablement piece that you can send them away with after that. Like, there's always these solutions, but people aren't trying to find them, I think.
Yeah. Look, there's two sides to this. I mean, I absolutely and wholly agree that, marketing's role is to create real customer demand. That's very different from a lead. Leads are a set of contact details, and really what you're wanting to create is demand, right? Someone that comes in the door demanding what you have to offer. It's like the people that will line up outside the Apple store the midnight before, just waiting for a phone that you're going to get 3 days later anyways. How ridiculous if you look at it from a lens of someone with a bit of common sense, but they do it. and that's demand. Now, you may not become the next Apple, but there's ways to create a level of demand wherein people come to you, and you're right, the salesperson can play the role of an advisor and go, hey, this is the best option, or we don't have an option that suits you, right? But I'm going to play the other side for a moment and empathize with the marketers. There are also situations in which, the holy grail is getting people coming in that demand what you offer. But if you are early in your marketing maturity as an organization, if you are earlier in your marketing journey, if you're early in developing this process of experimentation and your growth culture and everything that comes with it, then you know what? Maybe you can't get them all of that, because creating demand requires for you to have an exceptional message, a PR strategy, visuals that look well. Like you have to have so many things going for you. And I can come up with an amazing offer, stick it online, and it's so compelling and so many people are opting in, but I'm still not respected as a brand where people come in just like absolutely demanding what I have to offer, right? So in those scenarios, I really feel it's important for, whether you're a marketing leader or a sales leader or the leader of the company trying to sort of figure this whole piece out, because you're going to need to fund this investment for all those marketing activities we're talking about, right? It's important for sales to carry the load where marketing is falling short as well. And I'm trying to like sort of resolve some conflict between two young kids here. But if marketing's dropping the ball and your organizational objective is to drive revenue and you need to generate the sales so that you can reinvest back into the marketing, well, you know what? Sales needs to work harder too. Like we've seen situations where, the leads may not have been the best leads, the best inquiries, but with the right coaching process and management and the right mindset more than anything, they can turn the same inquiries into customers at 3 times the rate. So literally like, a 300% increase in conversions, right?
Yep. And I've worked with a lot of sales teams, and maybe I'm #blessed because I know if they're doing a good or poor job, right? And there's a lot of salespeople out there that will complain no matter what lead you give them because they want it on a silver platter and they want the easy lead. So a lot of it is, I think, being on the same page and having an agreed like vocabulary about what is good and what isn't, so that you're not constantly bickering about what is and what isn't good.
Yep. I'm going to move into the final point. I think we're running really well with time as well. And the last point being one that I feel really strongly about. You alluded to data earlier on, but being led by bad data. This is really a 2021, 2022 trend. I've interviewed so many people that love data. What is this fascination with data, right? I mean, yes, in the digital age, data is what we live off and it's what we want to work with. But I feel if someone says to me in an interview that they love data, I'm like 90% of the time, I'm like, I'm off. Like you have no idea what that means, right? You need processes and frameworks to understand what data you should be working with, what data makes sense, like what data should I pay attention to. This also goes back to the exercise we were speaking about earlier, in that you need to know who your target audience is, who is, what is your message, what is the offer we're going to put out, like what's the stuff that should go out into the market. And then the data needs to validate that. The data needs to tell that story. The data needs to tell the story of what is actually going on, not just point out metrics that either look good or look bad. And I think this is a huge problem. I'm curious to understand, are there any, like in your line of work, are there any really common data mistakes or observations you see people making? Do they sort of come to you with questions and go like, hey, why is this data this way, right? Or why is this metric looking like this?
A lot of the times they just don't even have good data set up. No good data tracking, right? They haven't even gone to the effort to set up their Google Analytics, or they're coming from, because we don't do traffic. We're more like a consultative, come in like growth experts. And data, this is the problem with data, it can be manipulated to tell whatever story you want. It's super easy to manipulate data to mean whatever the hell you want it to mean. And that's what a lot of agencies do. And so they're like, oh, look at this agency, it got this and this and this. And I was like, well, what are they doing with that data? What does that mean? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, it's just a number. Like they're putting numbers in front of your face. And so what we want to work with clients to do is actually figure out the metrics that matter. Yeah. What are the metrics that matter? It's usually revenue and sales down the end of the funnel. So what might happen is they're like, I want more conversions. I want more conversions on an ebook. Or I want more conversions on my offer. And I'm like, that's easy. I can pump up more conversions, but you might get a 30% uplift. Then your sales team is busy with crappy leads because you wanted more conversions and you actually end up making less revenue. And so it's just understanding what's the North Star metric to optimize for, right? What metrics are you actually optimizing for? So people often get overwhelmed with all this data and they don't know what they're actually trying to optimize their operations and their marketing for. That's probably the biggest mistakes I see is, they've got too much and it's analysis paralysis, either nothing or too much.
Yeah. So the conversation came up this morning with Leon, one of our content strategists, and we were talking about the term vanity metrics. And there's certain terms in the industry that when you've heard them enough times, you're like, is this even relevant anymore? And we had a little debate around that, right? Like, and we concluded that no, it is relevant. It's the language that people are using, and it's a very fair representation of how some of these metrics are taken on board, and whether that's CTRs and impressions and whatever else that people pay attention to. But the sort of the takeaway that I had reflecting on that was that also I believe the conversation does need to change a little bit too, in that there's a lot of metrics that are called vanity metrics, and they're vanity metrics in the wrong context. But for the purpose of understanding and analyzing what you're doing, they could have a lot of relevance, and they do have a lot of relevance.
Yes.
But you need to be able to tell what the story is, right? If you've got, so going back to my earlier comments about ad accounts, where we look at 8 different ad groups, if you're running search campaigns, and 3 of those ad groups are running really low CTRs. Now, that if it's a direct comparison, that could be a reflection of a poorer message. You could go, hey, like in these groups, we're just not doing well. We're not saying the right thing. The copy's bad. Your copy's shit. But if you dove deeper into it, it may actually be a reflection of the fact that, well, no, we're bringing in a much broader subset of traffic, and it's costing us a lot less overall to convert a customer. So to your point, what is the revenue we're generating from that? It's costing us much less to convert a customer, but you know what? The CTR's low. Who gives a shit, right? And it's that like sort of second, third, fourth, fifth level of data analysis and the interrogation of like why you're questioning something. That's really what needs to be indoctrinated into teams, because that data is really just, it's information, right? But insights is what you need to extract from it. It's insights that we're looking for intelligence here. But there's, to use your own words, like analysis paralysis. It's a bit of a tongue twister. Analysis paralysis. To use your own words, like that's where people are getting stuck, because they've got so much that they can look at, and it's almost like, well, not almost. It is like if I have a bias or a belief, I can confirm it with the data that's in front of me. So one of the things we've really been advocating for every team, company to build is a data and research model. So having one centralized document for how you get your research, where you collect it, what insights you should have within it, and then what some common points of data are for your ecosystem. Now, I know you said that you don't run traffic, but you obviously look at points of a person's or of a company's funnel where traffic is landing. So you're still having to, work through these things. But how often would it be that, you talk to a marketing or sales or leadership team and they have no idea which data they're actually supposed to be paying attention to, right?
Yeah, very often.
And that's, that's sort of like, I really feel that shortfall, to kind of connect it back to one of our earlier conversations, that shortfall is also one of the biggest reasons that these teams have to run blind. That's why they're running in the dark. One, they perhaps may not have the education or knowledge of how these channels work, but secondly, there's also no parameters around like what we should be measuring. Have you put any strategies in place personally or frameworks around how you identify which points of data you should be looking at, what people can do to implement culture and procedures within their companies that get people looking at the right things beyond the high level stuff, like beyond the revenue, the inquiries, the sales? Where should the focus be?
Yeah, literally, because I've built these teams from scratch here in a couple of companies. So, for example, at Founder, I was built out the sales funnel and conversion team. So in a funnel, it's a little bit different to traffic, but data needs context, and what gets measured gets improved. So with a funnel, it's just every touch point, and then you're just trying to keep improving that. But for my team, it's no good for me to be like, oh, this is what you need to measure. Then there's a benchmark. And then a lot of people want the industry benchmark. No, often you need to set your own benchmark in your company and then try to improve it. You can look at industry benchmarks, but I think you need to set your own internal benchmarks as well. And then there needs to be the decision tree of how to improve it. Okay, if it's below where we want to be hitting, then there needs to be that. But to go through all of that would take me a long time, because there's a lot of, it just depends, right? That's what you should be saying as a marketer. It depends. If your click-through rate's low, it depends how to fix it. If your conversion rate's low, it depends on how to fix it.
To close off, I'm going to throw a thought at you, and I'd like to hear your opinion, but I also believe that it's time that we get away from data at some points, because data, the need for data also stifles creativity and experimentation, because we're always looking to validate something. It's like you can't get data for everything. Sometimes you need to be a bit freer thinking, right?
It goes back to this certainty, right? And that we're trying to be logical, and we often forget that businesses are dealing with humans and we're batshit insane and we do weird stuff, and it can't all be attributed to this fancy piece of content. Like, there's that thing called the messy middle. Some people call it the dark funnel. We call it the messy middle. There's a lot of stuff that happens. When you were talking about this earlier, they try to curate this perfect experience. They see the ad, then they do this, and then they do this. That's not what happens. And there's a lot of things that happen in between the first time they see you and the time that they sign up to you that you can't attribute. So if you're just constantly trying to optimize for the things you can see, you actually start to lose the things that you can't see. And you start to lose a lot of this messy middle and a lot of this dark funnel that was actually attributing to your success. So that's my opinion to end us out on.
I think we could take this conversation into many different spaces, but we'll close out here. I think it's been absolutely incredible diving into these topics. Perhaps we need to get some of these specific points and do some deep dives down the line, but I think it's enough for one day. I want to thank you very much, Alisha, for joining me today and joining in on this conversation and bearing all and dishing out all of your trauma and pain for everyone to learn from in here. Today's conversation was obviously about conversions and funnels and the mistakes that people often make when it comes to designing a marketing ecosystem. So to anyone listening or to watching, if you took any value from this discussion, if there were any points of interest or you have any questions, I want you to jump on the channels, find us on social media, drop us a message or a comment, and we'll make sure that we get to it either on one of our next episodes or back to you when we speak to you. Alisha, thank you very much for joining again. and we shall catch up very
Thank
soon.
you.